Hi, Tim Conroy here on Facebook Live at Maxudes, doing another night of our pool school class. Hopefully this is going to translate well over video. If not, we are going to have our in-person classes starting on May 25th. So every Wednesday starting May 25th, every week we will have an in-person class to better educate you on pool chemistry. The purpose of pool school is to take new pool owners, whether you bought a pool from us or maybe you moved into a house that has a pool, or you've owned a pool and you just want some free knowledge on pool maintenance. I go over opening of your pool, we'll go over weekly maintenance, and then starting with the in-person classes, we'll go outside on the pool lot and we'll talk about how the pool equipment works, pump and filters. We'll talk about sand filters and the valve head and how the valve head works and operates. I'll go over how cartridge filters work, how to clean them, and then we will hook up a vacuum and vacuum a pool. So tonight we're not going to do the maintenance part, but we will do the chemistry part. So starting with our pool school notes are posted on our website, maxudes.com, if you need a copy of the notes. If not, you can always come into the store and get them here. So starting with the spring startup, what do you do to start opening your pool if you have an above ground pool? You start by pumping the water off the winter cover. And you need to get all the water off the winter cover before you can take the cover off. If you just get most of the water off, any debris that you have in the pool will get weighted down by that water, and when you unloosen the cable that holds on the winter cover, it will end up on the floor of your pool. What we use to drain the water off the winter cover is something called a siphon disc. The one we carry is called a cover saver. It's basically a disc that goes on top of the winter cover and has a priming hose that drains the water off the cover, so you don't have to buy a pump. If you have a submersible pump, you can use that, but make sure you get all the water off the winter cover before you start taking the cover off. After you take the cover off, clean it, fold it up, put it away for the summer. The third thing you'll do is connect your pump and filter. On the back page of our pool school notes, again, these are posted on our website, it just gives you a diagram of a sand filter and how to reconnect the hoses. It seems like an easy thing if you've had a pool for a few years, but I do get 30 or 40 customers a year that can't figure out why their filter is running improperly, and it's because their hoses are hooked up backwards. So if you have any questions about that, you can always call the store to get your hoses hooked up properly. If you have a cartridge filter, you should be changing the cartridge that's inside your filter every season. You might get a season and a half out of it. A lot of times people will take their old filter from the previous year, use that in the spring to clean up any debris that's in their pool, and then put a new filter in for the summer. If you have a sand filter, you typically will get 2 to 3 summers out of the sand that's in your tank. If you need help changing the sand out of your filter, you can come into the store and we can show you how to do that. There is a special grain of sand that you use. It's a 0.45 to 0.55 millimeter sand, number 20 sand that the sand filters use. The sand filter is filled up about 2/3 of the way in the tank, and you should replace that about every 2 or 3 years. It's a good idea when you're setting up your equipment in the spring to lubricate any O-rings that you have. You want to make sure that you use 100% silicone lube and not Vaseline or petroleum-based lubricants on the O-rings. Typically, there's an O-ring underneath the chlorinator lid. Underneath this lid, there's an O-ring. There's an O-ring on your pump, on the strainer housing of your pump. There's an O-ring on the cartridge filters between the top and the bottom half of the tank. All those O-rings should be lubricated really well starting up the year. The next thing you're going to do is remove any debris from the bottom of the pool. So especially if you have lots of leaves or dead algae, you want to get that out of your pool before you start adding chemicals. Any dead organics that you have in the pool, the chemicals will soak into those dead organics, and you'll kind of waste your money by using chemicals in a pool that has debris in it. So that can be frustrating. Make sure that you get all the debris off the floor of the pool and vacuum the pool. Get the pool as clean as you can before you start adding chemicals. Now it's time to fill up the pool. Make sure that when you fill up your swimming pool that you have about 80% of the water filled into the skimmer. You can't minimize the water in your skimmer. You really have to maximize the amount of water in your skimmer. If not, when people are in the pool, the pump will run dry and the pump will lose prime, and that's not a good thing. So make sure you get the water level nice and high in your pool. If you folks have questions during this live chat, I do have some people trying to answer questions. If you don't get your questions answered, make sure we're open all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday 10 to 7, Saturday 10 to 5, Sunday noon to 5. You can come into the store, or you can text our store number if you have questions at any time. Okay, so we've gotten our pool cover off. We've cleaned the bottom of the pool. We've vacuumed the pool. We've raised the water level, and we've hooked up the pump and filter. The first thing that we do chemically with a pool is always test the pH. For those of you who've owned pools for a while, you know how these test strips work. Test strips are very accurate, but you need to know how they work. So you take a test strip out of a bottle, you dip it in the water for a second, and then you hold the test strip level for 15 seconds. At the 15-second mark, you look at the colors on the back of the test strip. And the first color we're going to look at is the pH test. The pH test will go from yellow, which would be low pH, orange would be neutral or balanced pH, and then it would turn red. That square will turn red if your pH is high. Now, those of you who have well water, and if you're topping your pool off with well water, your test strip is going to turn red. That means your pH is high. And if your pH is high, you would start by using a product called pH minus. Now, the first thing you have to do when you own a pool and you're adding chemicals is you have to know how much water is in your pool. So on the front page of our notes, there's a list of all the pools and how much water they hold. pH minus is a granular chemical. Anytime you're adding granular chemicals to a pool, you would get a warm bucket of water, and you would dilute this chemical into a warm bucket of water and then pour it into the pool as the pool is filtering into the jet stream of water that is going back into the pool. That's called the return side of the pool. pH minus is used at a ratio of 1 pound for every 8,000 gallons of water. A pound is also a cup. If you're buying pH, we sell pH minus in a bucket of 6 pounds. So let's say you had an 18 or 16,000 gallon pool. That's a kind of a medium size 27-foot round or an 18 by 33 oval. You would add 2 pounds of pH minus to your bucket of water. Let that mix up a little bit and then pour it into the pool as the pool is filtering. You always want to make sure a pool is filtering when you add chemicals to a pool. It doesn't really help much to add chemicals to a stagnant pool. And then you would retest after 4 to 6 hours. You would retest your pH using the test strips, and the color chart on the back of the test strip bottle will show you the colors to make sure your pH is balanced. If your pH is not balanced, then you just redo the process. So it's test and re-step. If your pH level was low, typically your pH level would be low after major rainstorms. City water has neutral pH. Well water has high pH. Rainwater has low pH. So if you get enough rainwater in your pool, sometimes your pH will drop low, and then you would add pH plus. So pH plus is added at the same ratio, 1 pound for every 8,000 gallons of water. Again, mix it up into a bucket, pour it into the pool, and then retest after 4 to 6 hours to see if the pH is stabilized. Balancing the pH of your pool is one of the major things that you need to learn when you own a pool. It's probably the #1 reason why people have problems, if they do have problems with the pool, because chlorine does not work well at high or low pH levels. Low pH levels are very acidic. The water is acidic, and it kind of burns up the chlorine very quickly so that you don't utilize the chlorine that you bought. When the pH level is high, the chlorine just isn't acting well. It's not killing bacteria like it's supposed to. So getting the pH balance is really important. The second thing you would do, and this is for the people that have well water, if you're topping off your pool with well water, get this product called Metal Free. Metal Free will deactivate the iron and metals in your water. This little bottle treats up to 20,000 gallons of water, so use it in a ratio of how much water you think you're putting in your pool, and we can help you with that if you have questions about that. That's a liquid product. Any of the liquid products that we're adding to the pool, we can pour right into the jet stream of water that's shooting into the pool. By the way, that jet stream is called the return line of the pool, and it should be going down and away from your skimmer basket. So the little eyeball that the water comes out of is adjustable, and you can adjust it down on a 45-degree angle down away from your skimmer. So the water will swirl around your pool and then back into the skimmer. The other thing you can utilize if you have well water is you can utilize a hose filter. This is a hose filter that screws on the end of your garden hose if you have a lot of iron in your water, and this will help filter out the metals out of your water. Okay, number 8 on our pool school startup notes. There's something inside the AquaSmart docking station or the chlorinator that we use. And we use this system because we really believe we've used it for 25 years. So actually we've used it longer than that. We've used it since 1991. This green cartridge is kind of the key to the system. This cartridge has silver and zinc in it. And this cartridge lasts for 1 full swimming season. The way it works is as water travels through the system, it kills bacteria in the water so that you can swim in your pool at a much lower chlorine level. So this mineral activator sits down inside of the chlorinator, rests down inside of the chlorinator, and then there's a chlorine pack called the MiserMax pack that goes inside of it. So they kind of nest down inside of each other. And as the water flows through the chlorinator, you're going to set the dial on the front of the chlorinator based on the size pool you have. So if you have a smaller pool, an 18-foot round or a 12 by 24 oval, set the dial on this chlorinator at 3, number 3. If you have a 24-foot round or a 15 by 30 oval, set your dial at 4. If you have a 27 round or a 18 by 33 oval, set it at 5. If you have a 30-foot round pool or a 18 by 40 oval pool, set your dial at 6. And if you have a 33-foot round, set your dial at 7. Now the key to this whole system is consistency. The way this chlorine tube feeds chlorine into the pool is that because it's airtight at the top, the only chlorine that gets wet is down at the neck of this system. As the water is flowing through the system, the chlorine down here will dissolve, the chlorine at the top stays dry, and you're going to get the same amount of chlorine going into the pool every day if you get yourself a timer and you're running your pump consistently. So another key to the system is getting yourself a timer that you can plug your pump into and running the pump 8 hours a day. Run it consistently 8 hours a day at the dial setting that we talked about. After you put the new Miser pack in, there's an opening kit of chemicals that you get with your pool called the Pool Awake system. The Pool Awake system has 3 different things inside of it. The first is called a shine bottle. Now, all of these chemicals, they're easy to distribute into the pool because they go right down inside of your chlorinator. So this is the only time that you're going to turn your dial on your front of your chlorinator up to 10. You take the shine cap off, you put it inside your chlorinator, you turn your pump on, and you run it for an hour. After the shine is dissolved, you take the second bottle out. It's called Optimize. Again, you take the lid off, you put it down inside of the chlorinator, and you run it with the dial on 10 for an hour. Then you have a third bottle that's called Cannonball. A Cannonball you can use now when you're opening your pool, or you can use this. It's a great product to use if you are going on a long vacation weekend this summer, or maybe for a week. This is an algae preventative. It's got copper inside of it. We found that a lot of people, when they go on vacation, they come back from vacation and they have a green pool. Well, this will stop that from happening if you get your pH balance and your chlorine right before you leave. This is a liquid chemical, so you can pour it right into your pool. You would put this into your pool before the night before you leave, and this would prevent algae from growing. What happens with algae is that algae will form a lot of times in pools that aren't being used. So that's where a timer comes in also. If you have a timer for your pump, when you go on vacation, what you can do is make sure that you fill your pool up to the top of the skimmer so that you have enough water in the pool. If you have a timer, then your chlorinator can turn on every day, and you can enjoy yourself on vacation and not have to think about coming back to a green pool. Okay, so that's the opening pool chemicals called the Awake system. Then after the Awake system is done, you would go ahead and put your MiserMax pack back in your chlorinator and set it at the dial that we talked about. This chlorine package, the MiserMax package, is going to last you 2 to 4 weeks. It's going to last you 4 weeks on a smaller pool, like an 18-foot round or a 12 by 24 oval. It'll last you 3 weeks on a 24 round or a 15 by 30 oval. About 2.5 weeks on a 27 round or an 18 by 33 oval. And then it will last you about 2 weeks on a 30-foot round or an 18 by 40 oval. So the nice thing about this is it's consistent. Once you get into a mindset of having a dial setting that you like and having a timer kick on and off 8 hours a day, you'll have consistently the same amount of chlorine going into your pool. We'll talk a little bit more about how to adjust this dial as the summer goes on when we talk about weekly maintenance on the next page. The next thing you're going to add to your pool is something called pool conditioner. Now, pool conditioner is probably the #1 chemical that people forget about using, because in Michigan you only use it once a year in the spring. Pool conditioner it really has 3 names. It's called conditioner, it's also known as stabilizer, it's also known as synuric acid in the pool business. What conditioner actually does is it creates an environment in your pool water that the sun won't burn out so much chlorine out of your pool. So it really stabilizes your chlorine level for the summer. If you don't use conditioner, you're going to burn through a ton of chlorine for the summer. Conditioner is very tough to dissolve, so put it in a hot bucket of water, let it soften up for a bit, and then pour it into the pool as the pool is filtering. It's a granular chemical. They do make it in a liquid, and we sell it in a liquid. It's a little bit easier. You don't have to dissolve it, but the granular is less expensive. Conditioner, 1 pound for every 8,000 gallons of water. Do this in the spring, and then with our shorter swimming season, you don't need to do it later in the summer, just once a year. The last thing that we're going to add to the pool, to open the pool, is something called Phos-Free. This bottle is called Pool Magic plus Phos-Free Spring and Fall. We add this to the pool once a year in the spring. What this does is this eliminates all the phosphates and nitrates out of your pool water. Phosphates and nitrates is the food source that algae feeds off of. So we're going to drop your phosphate and nitrate level to 0 to start out the year, and I'll show you on the weekly page how we keep those phosphates and nitrates down. It also has a chemical in it called Pool Magic. That's an enzyme. And what enzymes do in the pool business is they break down dead bugs, dead leaves, dead algae, any dead organics enzymes help break down. So it's a great product. It's a real natural product. It's non-toxic. It's really better for your liner and your skin than algicides are to use to prevent algae from growing. The only other thing you would possibly add to your pool, if you have a really large pool, maybe a 30-foot round or an 18 by 40 oval, you'd maybe add an extra gallon of liquid chlorine to your pool. That will raise the chlorine level in those larger pools to get the year started. And what we use liquid chlorine for would be anytime the chlorine level is low and you want to quickly raise it up, the liquid chlorine will raise up the chlorine level, and then the chlorinator will keep the chlorine level consistent. Now with our system, because of the mineral activator that's inside this chlorinator, a typical pool would keep 3 to 5 parts per million of chlorine in the water. With this system, we're only going to have to keep 1 part per million of chlorine in the pool. And we're going to talk about testing for chlorine when we talk about weekly maintenance. So the advantage of this system is low chlorine. We call it mineral water because it uses minerals to kill bacteria instead of keeping a high chlorine level. And then with mineral water, the advantages would be, you know, you're not drying out your skin, you're not burning eyes, you're not fading bathing suits, drying out your hair. It's such a much more enjoyable water to swim in than any other water because there's very little chlorine in it, and the minerals kind of give it kind of a soft feel. So for those of you who have had used our low chlorine system before, we get lots of positive feedback. It makes your pool easy to take care of, especially if you have a timer. And it just kind of takes the worry out of having to measure chlorine, add chlorine pucks daily or weekly, and then just change those cartridges. Okay, so that's all I have for spring startup. I know this might be difficult on Facebook Live. I can't answer questions in person, but I will be doing these classes, and I am here most days other than Fridays to answer questions for you. All of our staff is really experienced, and so we should be able to get any questions that you have answered. Okay, the next thing we're going to talk about is the weekly maintenance. So the most work that you'll do in a year is that pool opening, the spring startup, a pool opening. Once you get to the weekly maintenance with a chlorinator, your life should be pretty easy. You've already got your pH balance, but what you're going to do weekly is test your pool water once a week. Try to pick the same day, maybe a Sunday night or a Saturday morning or whatever day, but try to be consistent that you're going to test your pool water the same time every week. Remember, when we test for pH, that pH square goes from yellow, which is low pH, orange, which is good. Orange is what you want, neutral pH, or balanced pH is another term. And then red would be high pH. So remember the things that affect pH. Rainwater will lower pH sometimes, and well water will raise pH sometimes. For those of you who have city water should be pH balanced, so it should be pretty neutral. You should do all right with city water when you're topping off your pool. The second square on a test strip is the chlorine test. Now, pH is tested on a pH scale. 7.2 to 7.6 is a neutral pH. Chlorine is tested in parts per million. So it's rating how many parts per million of chlorine is in your pool water. A typical pool on the test scale, the chlorine test will go from white, which is 0 parts per million, to dark purple, which is about 10 parts per million. A typical pool that doesn't have a mineral activator, you want to keep 3 to 5 parts per million of chlorine in your pool, which would be kind of a medium shade of purple. With our mineral activator system, you want to keep 1 part per million of chlorine in the water, and that's a very light shade of purple on a test strip. So that's kind of your goal, is to keep that light shade of purple. And you will do that by adjusting the dial if you need to. So what things affect the chlorine level in a pool? Well, the number one thing would be sunshine and how hot it is outside. With the heat also comes more people using the pool. But there are other factors when it comes to chlorine. And the biggest factor would be dead organics. So if you have lots of trees and leaves around your house, or if you have cottonwoods are a real tough example. If you have a lot of cottonwoods that end up in your pool, those cottonwood trees will soak up the chlorine. If folks have cottonwood trees around, use something called a scum sock. A scum sock looks like a pair of pantyhose. It's a fabric that goes over the skimmer basket on the side of your pool. You can buy them in a package of 5. And you need to clean these daily because they will plug up your skimmer and stop your pump from drawing water. So every night you would want to clean out the scum sock, get rid of the cottonwoods, but then the cottonwoods won't gum up your filter. Especially those of you with a sand filter and cottonwoods, these get stuck down into your sand and your sand filter, and they're really tough to get out. So if you have cottonwoods around, use the scum socks. Okay, back to chlorine. So you're trying to keep 1 part per million of chlorine in your water. You do that by using your dial. So let's say those of you with a 24-foot round pool, I said to set your dial on 4. If it was real hot outside and you're using your pool a lot, you can look at a 10-day forecast and see what it's going to be. You would maybe turn your dial from 4 up to 5 on your chlorinator. Or you look at the 10-day forecast and you see it's going to be real crummy weather, or maybe you're not going to be around much to use your pool at your house. Maybe you turn the dial from 4 down to 3. But keep your pump and filter runtime consistent. This system works off consistency. If you have a timer and you're bleeding a little bit of chlorine into the pool every day, those customers find that pool maintenance becomes very easy. So when you're testing for your chlorine, you can raise or lower the chlorine level by using the dial on the feeder. So we talked about balancing pH. The real reason you balance pH in pools is to allow the chlorine to work better. So remember that chlorine does not work at high or low pH levels. So the first step weekly is check the pH. We've checked our pH and adjusted it if we had to. The second step is we looked at our chlorine level. We've made sure that chlorine level is around 1 part per million. The third thing would be shocking a swimming pool. So with our system, chlorine and the minerals together kill bacteria in the water. Shocking a pool is the act of burning off dead bacteria. Now, shock can be a confusing product in the pool industry because the pool industry puts the name shock on a lot of different products. So we sell 2 types of shock. The main shock that we sell is called Blast, and it's a non-chlorinated shock. It's made out of potassium. It's potassium permoxymonosulfate. It's a fancy word for a non-chlorinated shock. And what this non-chlorinated shock will do is it will burn off dead bacteria in your water without you having to raise your chlorine level to a point where it irritates your eyes and your skin and fades your bathing suits and dries out your liner. So shocking your pool weekly with a non-chlorinated shock will kind of freshen up your water and allow you to swim in your pool without taking time off, so to speak. Shock is used weekly. You don't really need to start using this product until about a week after you've started using the pool. So we've had such crummy weather, I'm sure nobody's out there swimming in the pool yet. Usually about a week after you start swimming in the pool, you can start shocking the pool. And the shock is a granular chemical. It's 1 pound for every 8,000 gallons of water, weekly to your pool. Again, mix it in a bucket, pour it in the pool as the pool is filtering, and that will keep your pool from getting hazy and musty smelling and kind of freshen up the water. So that's the third thing. So the three basics of pool chemistry are keeping pH balance, keeping a chlorine level in your pool, and shocking the pool. Those are the three basics. The only thing we add on a weekly basis to that, and we've done this for about 20 years since the invent of enzymes and phos-free, is using some weekly maintenance of the Pool Perfect plus phos-free. It's called the weekly maintenance. So you use this weekly to keep your phosphate to nitrates down. The Pool Perfect is in there also, which will help break down dead bugs, dead leaves, dead algae. And you use this by capfuls. Not a cupful, but just the cap on the bottle. 1 cap for every 8,000 gallons of water. That will keep your phosphate and nitrate level down. This is the product that we use to prevent algae from growing, and it really just keeps your pool nice and clean and easy to swim in. So the weekly maintenance should be pretty easy if you get your pool open. If anybody is having trouble testing water, you can always bring a water sample to us. We'll test it at no charge. We can kind of tell you what we think when we see your water. Sometimes people can't quite read the colors or can't figure out the 15-second rule with the test strip. Feel free to always bring in a sample of water. We can help test it here at no charge for you. If you know what size pool you have, we can kind of help you with your pool chemistry that way. If any of you really want to come to a class, in-person class, remember they start Wednesday. We're going to do them every Wednesday starting May 25th at 5:30. And during that class, I'll kind of follow the same guidelines, but then after we do the chemistry part of the class, we'll go out on the pool lot and we'll talk about the equipment. We'll hook up a vacuum. We'll go over a valve head on a sand filter. We'll talk about anything any questions that you have. If you have questions about pool heaters or ladders or solar covers or solar reels, any of those things we can help you with during our normal weekly pool school classes that we've been doing for 25 years. So I hope this was helpful. Again, looking forward to seeing everybody. Hopefully the weather warms up soon. And again, we're open all weekend. If you have questions, please let us know. We're open tonight till 7 o'clock if you have questions. And all of our pool school discounts are going to apply through Sunday of this weekend. So if there's any products that you want to get for the summer at a discount, this is the weekend to do it. So thanks again. I'm Tim Conroy. If you have any questions, let us know. We'll be here until 7 o'clock tonight. Thanks.